Hello everyone. Enjoy these relaxing moments while you watch. In a world where money is everything, or at least that's how it is for Evelyn, one of the most haughty rich girls in the city, trust was elusive. Her life was measured by the digits in her bank account, her material possessions, and extravagant indulgences. The sunlight of the city poured over her vast mansion, an oasis of wealth amidst a sea of technology and excess. Evelyn, a 25-year-old with an appearance polished down to the finest detail, stood in front of the large window in her bedroom. Her cold blue eyes, a contrast to her icy heart, surveyed the carefully tended landscape that stretched out before her. She wore a custom-tailored dress worth far more than the annual salary of most employees, and on her wrist was a limited-edition gemstone bracelet, a symbol of time which, to her, equated to money. With an aged glass of wine in her hand, because to Evelyn even wine had to symbolize status, she watched her maid Hannah diligently cleaning under the blazing sun, meticulously trimming every rosebush, cleaning every nook and cranny, with a devotion that Evelyn found both strange and contemptible. Hannah was everything Evelyn lacked: humble, hardworking, and genuinely happy with her simple life. And most notably, she was incredibly beautiful, no matter how simply she dressed, something that fueled Evelyn's envy in quiet disdain. At 30, the maid bore the weight of honest labor with every drop of sweat on her pretty face, reflecting the hardships of her life. Her skilled professional hands wielded the tools with a finesse that could only come from years of practice and a love for her work. As Evelyn watched Hannah at work, a dark idea began to form in her mind. A sly smile crept onto her face, revealing the malice hidden beneath the facade of a respected heiress. "Why not bring this country pumpkin to my birthday party?" she thought, savoring the words in her head. It would be amusing to turn her into the laughing stock of the night. Evelyn's birthday party was the biggest event of the year at her family's estate, where the most influential and wealthy children of the elite gathered to celebrate Evelyn's birthday and indulge their inflated egos. It was a parade of designer outfits, couture dresses, and jewelry that could feed a small nation for years. Evelyn was always the center of attention at these events, bragging amongst her friends, discussing plans for the next lavish adventure, or showing off her newest acquisitions, whether it be a rising star or a yacht bigger than her rivals. But this year, she thought, would be different. This year she had an ace up her sleeve, a cruel joke that would elevate her above all the others in the sophisticated hierarchy of malice they all worshipped. Leaving her wine glass on the mahogany vanity, Evelyn stepped out of her bedroom and headed toward the garden. The heat slapped her face like a reminder of why she preferred the comfort of air conditioning. She approached Hannah, who, upon seeing her, wiped the sweat from her brow with a dainty handkerchief. "Good afternoon, Miss Evelyn." Hannah greeted her with a genuine smile that made Evelyn uncomfortable. How could anyone smile like that when their life was worth so little? "Hannah, my dear friend," Evelyn began, blending her voice with a practiced warmth she had perfected over the years. "I've been watching your work, and I must say, I'm very impressed." Hannah's eyes lit up with pride from the compliment, and Evelyn had to suppress the urge to cringe. "It's so easy to manipulate the simple-minded," she thought. "Thank you, Miss Evelyn. I always do my best to keep everything to your liking," Hannah responded, the pride evident in her tone. Evelyn nodded, feigning approval. "And that is why, Hannah, I want to give you something special. A reward for your hard work and dedication." Hannah blinked in surprise. In all her years working for the Evelyn family, she had never received anything beyond her weekly paycheck, and perhaps a small Christmas bonus. "A reward, miss?" she asked, curiosity evident. "Yes," Evelyn continued, savoring every word like she was sipping a fine wine. "As you know, every year I have a birthday party. It's the biggest event of the year, where the wealthiest children from the nation's elite gather." Hannah nodded, though it was clear she didn't truly know anything about this event. To her, parties and elite socialites were as distant as the moon. "So this year I want you to come with me," Evelyn declared, watching the shock and disbelief spread across the maid's face. "Me? To a party?" Hannah stammered, clearly overwhelmed by the invitation. "But miss, I don't know anyone there. I wouldn't know what to do or say at a place like that." Evelyn held back a laugh. The maid's insecurity was exactly what she was looking for. "Don't worry, Hannah. You'll be my guest of honor. Think of it as an opportunity to see how the other half lives. Besides, I'm sure everyone will be thrilled to meet the one who takes care of me and my home." Hannah looked at her dirty, work-worn hands, then at her clothes stained with the dust and grime of the garden. "You're too kind, Miss Evelyn, but I have nothing appropriate to wear to such an event." "Don't worry about that," Evelyn replied with a casual wave of her hand. "I'll make sure you have something fitting for the occasion. So, what do you say? Will you accept my invitation?" There was a moment of hesitation, a brief flicker of doubt, that seemed to tell Hannah something wasn't quite right about this sudden generosity. But the emotion and the chance to experience something so far removed from her daily life quickly outweighed any suspicion. "It would be an honor, Miss Evelyn," Hannah finally answered, a radiant smile spreading across her wrinkled face. "Thank you for thinking of me." "The pleasure is mine, Hannah," Evelyn responded, placing a hand on Hannah's shoulder to seal the deal. "The party is this Saturday, and I'll make sure you get everything you need." As she walked away, leaving Hannah caught between excitement and worry, Evelyn finally allowed the malicious laughter she had been holding in to burst across her face. The game had begun, and she could already taste victory. Back in the cool comfort of her mansion, Evelyn headed straight for her private bar, needing another drink to celebrate the start of her perfect plan. While pouring herself another glass of wine, her mind raced, playing out every detail of the humiliation she was about to orchestrate. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. After a few seconds, a voice answered on the other end. "Rose Evelyn," said without bothering with a greeting, "I need you to do something for me. I want you to find a dress for my maid. It has to stand out, and the less appropriate, the better. Make sure it's way too big." There was a moment of silence on the other end, as if Chloe, her personal assistant, was trying to make sense of the strange request. "Of course, Miss Evelyn," Rose finally replied. "Do you have any preferences for color or style?" Evelyn smiled to herself. "Surprise me, Rose. Just make sure it's something that will have everyone staring for all the wrong reasons." She hung up without waiting for a response. Chloe would understand. She always did, which was why she was invaluable to Evelyn, capable of carrying out even the most bizarre tasks without asking inconvenient questions. With the plan now in motion, Evelyn allowed herself to imagine how the gala would unfold. She pictured Hannah walking in, awkward and out of place, wearing a ridiculous outfit that would make her stand out like a sore thumb. She could see the confused stares, the stifled laughter, the whispered comments behind champagne glasses, and at the center of it all would be her, Evelyn, the architect of this cruel comedy. She would be the talk of the town for weeks, maybe even months. "Do you remember when Evelyn brought her maid to the party?" they would say, and everyone would laugh, admiring her boldness and cunning cruelty. But there was more at stake than just a mean-spirited prank. For Evelyn, this was a statement, a reminder to everyone at the party of who she truly was. Not just a wealthy heiress, but someone capable of manipulating, controlling, and crafting a spectacle at will. As she sipped her wine, Evelyn reflected on the path that had led her here. Born into wealth, her parents had climbed to the top of the business world through shrewdness, determination, and a total lack of ethics. Every step on her parents' way to the top had been marked by decisions that others might call ruthless or immoral, instilling in Evelyn the belief that cruelty was necessary for success. She recalled the stories her father had told her. His first big break at just 26, when he hacked and stole the idea of a promising startup, presenting it as his own and securing the backing of key investors. The original founder, a bright but naive young man, was never able to prove the theft and ended up working in an electronics store. His dream shattered. Then there was the hostile takeover of a family business that had existed for 3 generations. Evelyn's father, without a shred of remorse, dismantled the company and sold off its assets, leaving dozens of loyal employees jobless. The father of that family, who had built the business from nothing, had a heart attack upon hearing the news and died shortly after. After each victory, each $1 million accumulated, Each headline in the business magazines was another step in building Evelyn's father's creed, convincing her that the more ruthless you were, the more successful you would be. And now, living in the pinnacle of success her father had built, with more money than she could spend in several lifetimes, what was left for her? The thrill of it all had long since faded. The designer goods, the trips, they had all become dull, almost mundane, tasteless, and most of all, she hated the beautiful face of Hannah. That's why she needed this small act of cruelty, this elaborate joke at the expense of a simple, kind girl like Hannah, was a reminder to herself and others that she could still cause a stir, create chaos simply for the fun of it. As these thoughts swirled in her mind, Evelyn moved back to the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. In the garden, Hannah continued working, completely unaware of the fate Evelyn had planned for her. For a brief moment, something like hesitation flickered in Evelyn's mind. Was all of this really necessary? What would she truly gain from humiliating someone who had always been kind and hardworking? But the feeling vanished as quickly as it had come. I hate people more beautiful than me. And Evelyn looked ahead with a dangerous face. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity at Evelyn's mansion. Rose, true to her reputation for efficiency, had found the perfect outfit for Hannah, a garish green dress, 2 sizes too big with an absurdly puffed-out skirt. It was an outfit straight out of a bad stage performance, completely out of place at a glamorous party of elite socialites. When Chloe presented the dress to Evelyn, she couldn't help but laugh with satisfaction. "Great job," she said, inspecting the outfit with cruel delight. "This is exactly what I had in mind." The night of the party arrived, a night of light and glamour that seemed to illuminate the entire city. The hotel where the party was being held was a magnificent building perched on cliffs overlooking the ocean, transformed into an oasis of luxury and exclusivity. The entrance was adorned with massive floral arrangements and a red carpet that stretched on endlessly, guarded by security staff in black suits and earpieces, standing still as statues. Luxury cars and limited edition sports cars glided past the Grand Hotel, each one more impressive than the last. It was an endless parade of famous faces, friends of Evelyn's parents, then the children of those high-powered executives arriving one after the other. Inside her Rolls-Royce, Evelyn adjusted the bow on her dress, an awaiting smile on her lips. Next to her, Hannah sat, clearly uncomfortable and out of place, squeezed into the garish green dress that Rose had found. "Remember, Hannah," Evelyn said with fake sweetness, "tonight you're my special guest. Don't worry if you don't understand everything that's said. Just smile and nod." Hannah, her sweaty hands clenched on her knees, nodded nervously. "Thank you again for this opportunity, Miss Evelyn. I promise I won't let you down." Evelyn had to suppress a giggle. Hannah didn't realize that the only way not to disappoint her was to become the joke of the night. The Rolls-Royce pulled up to the entrance, and a valet quickly opened the door. Evelyn stepped out first, greeting the photographers with a practiced smile as they immediately began snapping photos. Then, with a dramatic gesture, she extended her hand to help Hannah out of the car. The moment Hannah stepped out was exactly as Evelyn had envisioned. For a split second, the flashes paused, as if the photographers couldn't believe what they were seeing. Then, with renewed enthusiasm, the cameras began clicking furiously. Hannah, blinded by the flashes and clearly overwhelmed by the attention, stumbled slightly as she exited the car. Evelyn held her hand, a gesture that might have seemed friendly to those watching, but in reality, it was meant to further expose Hannah to the cameras. "Miss Evelyn, who's your companion?" one of the reporters shouted. Evelyn smiled, savoring the moment. "This is Hannah, my maid. I thought it would be fun to bring someone who really knows how to make things grow. Don't you all agree?" Giggles and stifled laughter echoed around them. Hannah, not understanding the true meaning behind Evelyn's words, smiled awkwardly at the cameras as they walked the red carpet. Evelyn could feel the curious stares and amused glances following them. The celebrities, socialites, and famous faces of the elite world watched them with a mixture of confusion and obvious entertainment. Once inside the hotel's grand lobby, the contrast between Hannah's world and the luxury of the event became even more apparent. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a golden glow over the guests who chatted casually, glasses of champagne in hand. The wealthy heiresses were adorned in designer gowns worth more than Hannah's entire house, while the young heirs seemed to be in competition over who wore the most expensive watch or drove the most exclusive car. Hannah stopped, clearly overwhelmed by the spectacle in front of her. "Miss Evelyn," she whispered, "I'm not sure I belong here." Evelyn suppressed a victorious smile. "Nonsense, Hannah. You're my guest. Let me introduce you to some friends." With one hand on Hannah's back, Evelyn guided her toward the table where her parents were seated with a group of high-powered executives. Near the bar, she recognized William, the CEO of one of the most promising startups, and Miles, a renowned venture capitalist known for his sharp tongue. "Evelyn," William called out, raising his glass in greeting. "We thought you were going to miss the party." "And miss all this fun? Never," Evelyn replied before turning to Hannah. "Allow me to introduce my companion for the evening. This is Hannah. Hannah, my maid." The silence that followed was almost palpable. "Your maid?" Miles repeated, his tone a mix of disbelief and amusement. "Yes," Evelyn confirmed, relishing every second. "I thought it would be refreshing to bring someone truly interesting, if you know what I mean." The polite laughter that followed was forced and uncomfortable. Hannah, sensing she was the center of a joke she didn't fully understand, smiled nervously. "Tell me, Hannah," William said, clearly deciding to play along with Evelyn's joke, "what do you think of colonizing Mars?" Hannah blinked in confusion. I don't know much about that, sir. But I suppose if they're going to colonize Mars, they'll need good maids, right?" Her answer elicited another round of laughter, this time more genuine, but no less cruel. Evelyn could feel the curious stares and amusement directed at them from every corner of the room. Her plan was working perfectly. As the evening progressed, Evelyn made sure to introduce Hannah to as many people as possible, each interaction more awkward than the last. She paraded Hannah from group to group, from one conversation to the next, exposing Hannah's lack of knowledge about technology, finance, and the culture of the guests. At one point, they encountered Adam, who looked at Hannah with a mix of curiosity and amusement. "So, Hannah," Adam said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "what do you think the future of AI and domestic service will be?" Hannah, sweating under the lights and the unwanted attention, stammered, Well, sir, I think if they can cook rice and serve it without spilling, that'd be something." This response drew more laughter from the group surrounding them. Adam, though clearly amused by the situation, seemed to consider her answer for a moment before nodding. "You know, that's not a bad idea. Perhaps we should explore automating cooking and serving on Mars." Evelyn, while finding the situation humorous, felt a slight pang of irritation. She didn't want Hannah to receive any recognition, even if it was sarcastic. As the night wore on, the alcohol flowed freely and inhibitions began to drop. The comments about Hannah grew bolder, the laughter no longer hidden. Evelyn watched with delight as her plan unfolded, as Hannah slowly wilted under the weight of the stares and remarks. At one point, Hannah excused herself to go to the restroom. Evelyn watched her go, noticing how her shoulders slumped and her steps faltered. For a brief moment, a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. Had she gone too far? But before she could dwell on it, she was approached by a group of friends eager to chat, and Evelyn quickly lost herself in the conversation, temporarily forgetting about Hannah's fate. Meanwhile, in the luxurious restroom of the hotel, Hannah stared at herself in the mirror. The reflection staring back was that of a defeated woman. The bright lights highlighted every tear, every stain on her ill-fitting dress. For the first time that evening, she was alone, without the overpowering presence of Evelyn or the mocking stares of the other guests. Hannah splashed water on her face, trying to regain her composure. What was she doing here? It was clear she didn't belong in this world of wealth and power. Every conversation, every glance, every stifled laugh reminded her that she was an intruder, a walking joke. As she dried her face with a towel softer than anything she had ever touched in her life, Hannah considered her options. She could simply leave, catch a taxi, and return to the safety of her small home. But something inside her resisted that idea. She had promised Evelyn she would attend the party, and Hannah was a woman of her word, no matter the circumstances. With a deep sigh, she stood up straight, adjusted the bow of her dress as best as she could, and prepared to return to the party. She might not belong here, but at the very least she could face the rest of the evening with dignity. While Hannah struggled with her insecurities in the restroom, Evelyn was in her element. Surrounded by the powerful and famous friends she adored, she commanded the conversations with the skill of a refined heiress, each word, each gesture, each smile, calculated for maximum effect. "Evelyn," a voice called from behind her, "I must say, your choice of a companion tonight is quite interesting." Evelyn turned to face her father's biggest rival in the tech world, Victor. Victor was everything Evelyn's parents despised: intelligent, charming, and worst of all, genuinely loved by his employees and colleagues. "Uncle Victor," Evelyn replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Always a pleasure to see you. What can I say? I enjoy surprising people." Victor looked at her with an unreadable expression. "Is that what you're doing? Because from where I'm standing it looks like you're humiliating a girl who clearly doesn't understand why she's here." Evelyn's smile wavered for a moment. "Don't be dramatic, Uncle Victor. I'm simply showing Hannah a world she would never see without me. Isn't that generous?" "Generous," Victor repeated, his voice dripping with skepticism. "Is that what you call it? Because to me this looks like an exercise in unnecessary cruelty." Before Evelyn could respond, a murmur spread across the room. All heads turned toward the main entrance to the ballroom, where an impressive figure had just appeared. He was a tall man, around 75 years old, with silver-streaked hair slicked back and a presence that exuded authority. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, not ostentatious but radiating wealth in every stitch, but the most striking feature was his sharp eyes seemed to see through every lie, and his smile blended kindness and shrewdness in perfect harmony. Evelyn felt her mouth go dry. She knew who the man was. Everyone in the country knew him. It was John, the legendary investor and philanthropist who had made and broken more fortunes than anyone in the history of tech. He was the one man even the industry's titans bowed to, and he was heading straight toward them. "Victor, my boy," John said in a voice that was friendly but undeniably commanding. "It's good to see you again. How's that clean energy project you told me about coming along?" Victor, clearly delighted to have John's attention, eagerly launched into an enthusiastic explanation of the latest advancements in solar technology. Evelyn, feeling temporarily sidelined, prepared to interject when she noticed John's gaze had shifted to her. "And you must be Evelyn," John said, extending his hand. "I've heard a lot about you." Evelyn shook his hand, trying to hide her nerves behind a confident facade. "Mr. John, it's an honor. I hope everything you've heard is positive." John smiled, but something in his eyes made Evelyn feel as though she were being scrutinized under a microscope. "Oh, I've heard all sorts of things. You're certainly a remarkable figure, Evelyn. There's no denying that. Although I must say, your choice of companion tonight is quite notable." At that moment, as if summoned by John's words, Hannah stepped out from the crowd. Her face still bore traces of having been freshly washed, and there was a new resolve in her expression, as if she had made a difficult decision. The moment Evelyn had been waiting for all night had finally arrived. With Hannah back in the ballroom and John watching with interest, the stage was set for the grand finale of the cruel joke she had orchestrated. "Mr. John," Evelyn said with a smile that barely concealed her malice, "allow me to introduce my special guest for the evening. This is Hannah, my maid." The silence that followed was almost absolute. Even the background music seemed to fade, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. John looked Hannah up and down, his expression unreadable. Hannah, for her part, stood as tall as she could in her ill-fitting dress, facing the gaze of the legendary investor who was a friend of Evelyn's parents, and the amused stares of Evelyn's young elite friends with a mix of anxiety and determination. And then the most unexpected thing happened. John smiled. It wasn't the thin, sarcastic smile Evelyn had expected, but a warm, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Hannah," John said, extending his hand, "it is an honor to finally meet you." Confusion spread across Evelyn's face like an ink stain. Finally, what did he mean by that? Hannah, equally surprised, shook his hand. "The honor is mine, Mr. John," she replied, her voice stronger than it had been earlier in the night. And then, as if signaled by John's words, something extraordinary began to happen. Like a wave spreading across the ocean, the guests began to stand, one by one, then in groups, until the entire room was on its feet. Applause erupted, starting softly but quickly building into a deafening roar. Evelyn looked around, stunned, unable to comprehend what was happening. "That's her!" someone in the crowd shouted. "The unknown angel. I can't believe it. She's a legend." Whispers spread quickly. "The unknown angel? Is she really here? I can't believe it. She's a legend." Evelyn turned to Hannah, her face a mix of confusion and rising horror. "What are they talking about? What is this?" But Hannah was no longer looking at Evelyn. Her eyes were focused on John, who nodded slightly, as if granting permission. Hannah took a deep breath and, for the first time that night, stood completely tall. Suddenly, the ill-fitting, garish outfit seemed irrelevant. There was a dignity in her posture, a strength in her gaze that Evelyn had never seen before. "I think it's time for the truth to be revealed," Hannah said, her voice clear and resolute. "Yes, I am the unknown angel." The revelation hit the room like a clap of thunder. Evelyn felt the ground shift beneath her feet. The unknown angel? The mysterious philanthropist who had donated millions to charities in secret for years, whose identity had been the subject of speculation across every social circle in the country. But you're a maid," Evelyn stammered, unable to reconcile the humble image of Hannah with the legend of the unknown angel. Hannah smiled, a smile full of years of secrets and satisfaction. "Yes, I am a maid, and I'm proud of it," she replied. Then John stepped forward onto the stage, taking hold of the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, a few years ago, Hannah was one of the top young entrepreneurs in our country, named among the top 5. However, for reasons unknown, she decided to step away from that life and live simply, doing what she loves." John moved toward Hannah, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I've had the privilege of working with Hannah on many charitable projects over the years. Her generosity and humility are truly inspiring." Evelyn felt her world spinning. Her plan, her cruel joke had crumbled in an instant. Worse still, she had become the laughingstock, the villain of the story. The guests began flocking to Hannah, eager to meet the legendary unknown angel. Executives, stars, and philanthropists who had looked at Hannah with disdain hours earlier were now competing for her attention. "Missy, Hannah," a famous actress said, "your donation saved the arts center in my hometown. I cannot thank you enough." Hannah, a renowned tech entrepreneur, added, "The funds you provided for clean energy research are game-changing. It's an honor to finally meet you." As the compliments and gratitude continued, Evelyn found herself retreating, shrinking away from the spotlight, her mind racing, trying to process what was happening. How could she have been so wrong? How could she not have known? Hannah, for her part, accepted the thanks with grace and humility. "The real honor is in helping," she said repeatedly. "Each of us has the power to make a difference, no matter our place in life." At one point, Hannah turned to Evelyn, who had withdrawn into a corner of the room. With steady steps, she approached her once proud employer, now small in the face of the revelation. "Evelyn," Hannah said, her voice gentle but firm, "I suppose you're wondering why I accepted to come tonight, knowing your intentions." Evelyn, unable to meet Hannah's gaze, looked down at the floor. I don't understand. Why work as a maid if you have so much money? Why put up with all of this?" She gestured vaguely to the party, and more broadly, to the way she had treated her. Hannah smiled, a smile filled with empathy and sadness. "Because honest work, Evelyn, no matter what it is, has dignity, because caring for you and your home, seeing things improve every day, keeps me grounded in what truly matters, and because sometimes the most important lessons come from the most unexpected places. Evelyn felt something crack inside her. Her whole life, her entire upbringing, her parents had taught her that money and power were all that mattered. And now here was Hannah, a woman with more wealth than Evelyn could ever dream of, choosing to live a simple life and quietly do good. I'm sorry, Evelyn mumbled, the words difficult to get out. I didn't mean to. Hannah placed a hand on Evelyn's shoulder, a gesture of understanding that Evelyn felt she didn't deserve. I know, Evelyn, and while I can't condone your actions tonight, I think there's a lesson here for all of us. She turned to the crowd around them, her voice rising so that everyone could hear. Tonight reminds us that we should not judge people by appearances or their profession. True wealth is not measured in dollars, but in the positive impact we can make in the lives of others. A murmur of agreement spread through the room. Evelyn could see the eyes that had once admired her, now turning cold or filled with pity. She had fallen from her pedestal, and the fall was steep. John stepped closer, his presence always commanding. Evelyn, his voice a mix of disappointment and a sliver of hope. You made a grave mistake tonight, but as Hannah pointed out, there is always room for growth and redemption. Evelyn nodded, feeling smaller than she ever had before. We cannot change the past, Evelyn, but we can plant the seeds for a better future, John continued. And you don't have to do it alone. There is a community here willing to help, guide, and work with your family on projects that truly matter. Evelyn looked at him, feeling a mixture of humility and hope that she had never experienced before. I want that. To learn, to help, to do things differently. Hannah smiled brightly. So what do you say if we start tomorrow morning in your house, as I suggested? There's something truly therapeutic about cleaning and seeing your efforts quite literally. I would love that, Hannah. I think I have a lot to learn from you. From everyone, she added. As they spoke, Hannah made her way to the balcony. Her presence, once overlooked and mocked, now radiated quiet authority. Ladies and gentlemen, Hannah said with a gentle smile, I hope I'm not intruding. Not at all, Victor replied, making room for her to join them. Evelyn, still grappling with her shame, could hardly meet Hannah's eyes. Hannah, I don't know what to say. Hannah placed her hand on Evelyn's shoulder again, the same gesture of understanding. Sometimes, Evelyn, there's no need to say anything. What matters is what we do from here on out. The group stood in silence for a moment, gazing out at the starry sky. As the gala ended, the guests left with a new perspective. The story of the unknown angel, the millionaire maid who had spent her career quietly helping others, would spread like wildfire in the days to come, inspiring others to reconsider their priorities and the true meaning of success. Evelyn, who had planned her birthday party with the intention of humiliating her beautiful maid, left with a lesson in humility and a newfound purpose in life. That night, Evelyn sat down with her parents, and they talked for hours. Her parents, filled with regret for having raised her with such negative values, expressed their remorse. Together, they vowed to change, to strive to help the community rather than merely satisfy their own selfish ambitions. The next morning, as promised, Evelyn showed up ready to work alongside Hannah. As they cleaned the house, Evelyn understood that they weren't just caring for a home. They were refreshing their lives and embracing transformation. Along with it came the promise of change for their entire community. The story of the wealthy heiress and her maid would become a legend in the country, a reminder that true wealth is not measured in dollars, but in the positive impact we can have on the lives of others. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.